This is the Sony 10 to 18mm f4 OSS, and in this video, I'm going to be giving you 5 reasons why I think this is one of the best ultra-wide angle lenses you can buy if you are a Sony user. So let's talk about it. So one of the main reasons why you're probably buying an ultra-wide angle lens is because you're probably going to use it for vlogging, or if you want a wider shot when it comes to maybe taking landscape photos. But for my use case, I use this mainly for vlogging and some gimbal work and some skateboarding videos. So I use it mainly with my Sony a7C Mark II right here. So I like this combo because first of all, the a7C is already a very small camera. And if you pair it with a lens that is small as well, like the 10 to 18mm, you get an overall lightweight package. The form factor is just amazing on this thing. So the first reason why you should consider this lens right here is that this is an ultra wide angle zoom lens. So you can basically go from 10mm to 18mm. You're not just locked into one focal length. So if you already framed up your shot and you want to make some minor adjustments with the composition, you can punch in from 10mm to 18mm, which will give you a little bit more flexibility. So the second reason is probably the obvious right here, because this is an a7C Mark II, right? Which is a full frame camera. You're probably wondering how is it going to work with an APS-C lens, which is this one right here. So actually, this lens is unique because you can still use it on a full frame camera without using APS-C mode. So if you're using it with a camera like an a7C Mark II or an a7 IV, you can basically just zoom it all the way to around 12mm, and you're going to get rid of that vignetting that happens on the top frame, the bottom, and the sides. So the third reason is the form factor. Like what I mentioned in the beginning, this thing is super small. Like it only weighs around 230 grams, maybe 240 including the lens filter. So this is a very lightweight lens. Imagine if you were to use a Sony 16 to 35 f2.8. That would easily be around 600 to 800 grams, which is insane if you want to have a camera that you want to bring around with you every day, right? That's a little bit too heavy to vlog with. So I like this little thing over here because it's just the perfect package for me if I want to do some content creation outdoors. The only downside of this lens right here is probably reason number 5. It has a constant f4 OSS, right? Which means within the zoom range of 10 to 18mm, you have f4. But the only problem is it's not going to have that shallow depth of field of an f2.8 lens, right? But you're not going to get so much shallow depth of field out of an ultra wide angle lens anyway. But the main weakness of this lens will probably be low light, because we're only dealing with an f4 aperture, which means low light is going to be the main game weakness of this thing. But if you keep that limitation in mind and only bring this out during daytime or maybe location wherein there's sufficient lighting, this lens will do wonders for you, as it has for me, because I've been using this a lot, not just for vlogging, but for shooting skateboarding as well. I like that little vignette sometimes that I get out of it because it emulates like a fisheye effect without having the bulbous fisheye distortion effect. This around 10mm gives you that vignetting, but of course that look is not for everybody, right? So again, if you want to get rid of the vignetting, like what I said before, zoom into 12mm and you're going to get rid of that problem. And the last reason for you to consider this lens is definitely the OSS, which means optical steady shot. So optical steady shot basically means this lens right here has in-body stabilization within the lens. So if you pair that with a camera with IBIS, in-body image stabilization, you get double the stabilization. So if you're walking around vlogging with your camera and your camera is like this, the a7C Mark II, which has like active stabilization, and you pair it with the 10 to 18, the active stabilization will crop in a little bit on the frame, right? Which means you're not going to need to zoom into 12mm anymore to get rid of that vignetting. So the OSS is also good for B-roll. So if you like to shoot like panning shots, like not really walking, because this is not really Panasonic GH5 level image stabilization, but it does the job for maybe slight movement and maybe vlogging, just to get rid of that micro jitter that happens whenever you walk around with the camera. So if you put that into consideration, like this lens has OSS, the Sigma 10 to 18mm f2.8 is actually a very popular lens right now for APS-C vlogging. That thing does not have OSS. And there's one more popular lens right now. I think it was the Sony 10 to 18 Power Zoom. I think that thing doesn't have optical stabilization as well. So yeah, this is one of the strengths of this lens. Although it is a very old lens, I'm not sure when it came out, but this is a very reputable lens. I've had this for so long. I've had this since I got married in, I forgot, I'm gonna mess this up. I got married in 2020 during COVID. So I've had this since 2020 and I've loved this lens ever since. So to sum things up, the Sony 10 to 18mm f4 OSS is an amazing lens if you consider how to use it, that you have to zoom in a little bit or use active stabilization to get rid of the vignetting on full frame cameras. So yeah, I love this lens and I highly recommend it to anybody who's looking for a lens to vlog with, to take landscape photos, or just to take wider shots in general. So that's it from me, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Peace.